So, children, we had studied or discussed probably about the various ways in which metals can be extracted from their corresponding ores. We all know what are minerals now. We all know what are ores now. So mineral is basically everything that is present on the earth's crust, and a mineral which is having a very concentrated form of the ore of a metal is called a ore. Okay, a mineral which has a very concentrated form of the particular metal is called a ore. So ore is basically a mineral from which you can profitably extract a particular type of metal. We had seen in our last class how mercury or the less reactive metals are usually extracted from their ores. The ore of mercury which is utilized for extraction is cinnabar, which is mercuric sulfide, and this is the picture of the same. I would like all of y'all to put today's date and write their classwork. Put today's date and write their classwork. So mercury was extracted by heating the sulfide ore, that is mercuric sulfide cinnabar, in presence of oxygen. Okay, and this leads to the conversion of mercuric sulfide into mercuric oxide, and sulfur dioxide gas is released. This mercuric oxide that is formed will then be subjected to heating, and you will get the pure metal. Now I want all of you all to write the first reaction which I'm saying. You will write the chemical formula or the chemical balanced equation. Are we all ready? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
please write mercuric sulfide reacts with oxygen. So you will not be writing reacts with oxygen. You will be writing it in the form of a chemical equation. Reacts with oxygen to form mercuric oxide, and sulfur.
Ma'am, could you please repeat?
Yeah, mercuric sulfide reacts with oxygen to form mercuric oxide and sulfur dioxide. So sulfur dioxide will be released into the atmosphere. It is also one of the pollutants there. Now this second equation will be mercuric oxide. You can balance it also parallelly. Can I come to the second equation now? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Mercuric oxide. So mercury's valency is +2. Oxygen, you know, is -2. So you can write the formula of mercuric oxide. On heating, when you heat mercuric oxide, you get back the pure form of the metal, that is mercury. Okay. And oxygen gas is released. So all of y'all should have got the first equation as, Aniket, if you can just give me the first equation. Aniket, can you give me the first equation?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
HGS plus O2 is 2HGO plus S.
Yeah. Did you write the states there, Aniket? The states.
Yes, ma'am.
The states also should be written. Okay. All of you got this. Now the second one, a second equation. Apurva, can you give me the second equation? Apurva?
HgO.
Yeah.
On heating gives us Hg plus
Hg plus?
O2.
Louder, Apurva. Hg plus?
O2.
O2. Why not O, Apurva?
Because it exists in that form.
Louder, dear.
Oxygen molecule exists in that.
Oxygen is a diatomic molecule. Very good. So we all have got this particular equation. Then we saw that extraction of copper also can be done from its corresponding sulfide, where the sulfide of copper is heated in presence of oxygen again, and you get copper oxide and sulfur dioxide. Here the copper oxide obtained is again heated with copper sulfide, and you get copper metal in the pure form along with sulfur dioxide. Metals like zinc and all are existing in two or different types of ores. One is the carbonate ore and the other is the sulfide ore. So if zinc is present in sulfide ore form, it is usually separated by the process of roasting, okay, from its ore. So roasting is a process in which you heat the sulfide ores in excess presence of air and you get the corresponding oxide of the metal. In calcination, as I had told you, remember C, calcination, C, carbonate. So if the ores are carbonate ores, then they would be purified using the process of calcination, wherein the ore will be heated in limited or absence of air, limited supply of air or absence of air, and you will obviously get the carbonate ores decomposed into zinc oxide and carbon dioxide. So there is carbon dioxide gas that is evolved in calcination. Again, another C. So calcination is for carbonate ores and there is carbon dioxide that is evolved. Okay. And roasting is for sulfide ores and it is done in excess presence of air and sulfur dioxide gas is obtained here. I'll just quickly go through this particular equation, which is very important. We have already visited this particular concept in the first chapter of chemical equations. If you remember, oxidation reduction reaction. So once you get the zinc oxide from the carbonate and sulfide ores, you will be reacting it with carbon in the form of coke. So what happens here is carbon acts as a strong reducing agent and it accepts the oxygen from zinc oxide. Once it accepts the oxygen from zinc oxide, it is forming carbon monoxide and pure zinc metal can be obtained. So you see here that oxidation reduction reaction is happening parallelly to get the pure form of zinc. Okay, we also saw a very important reaction which I told you should remember. This comes for exams usually, called as the Thermit reaction, wherein aluminium was utilized for reacting with the ore of iron, and in the process a lot of heat is generated which melts the iron into molten state and hence it is utilized for the joining of the railway tracks. Yes, Edwin, you have a question there?
Yes, ma'am. How do you melt the ore or burn the ore if you can't have if you don't have oxygen? Told in absence of air, you do it.
Can you please repeat? I'm not
in calcination.
Yeah.
How will you burn the ore if it's not in presence of oxygen?
So we are not burning, we are heating. Heating process is not burning, right? Heating in absence of oxygen. For combustion, you require oxygen. For burning, right? Here we are just heating it.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that fine, Edwin?
Yes, ma'am.
So Thermit reaction, whenever you write this particular reaction, children, on your right hand side, that is the product side, you should always write plus heat. Okay, so even in your textbooks it's mentioned, and even you can always make a note that there should be plus heat written on the product side, so that you know that it's a highly exothermic reaction and the heat produces so much that it melts the solid iron into molten state, and then it is utilized for joining the railway tracks. Now today we will be looking at the extraction of highly reactive metals. Now highly reactive metals like sodium, potassium cannot be easily obtained by reacting them with carbon. Can you tell me why? You cannot easily extract sodium, potassium, aluminium by just reacting their oxides with carbon. Why do you think so? If you remember the reactivity series that I have shared in the first class.
They're higher in reactivity series.
Yeah, ma'am. They don't react with carbon.
Ma'am, they're
react
highly
with
reactive.
oxygen.
Yes, they react with oxygen. That is very correct. That's why they're not found in the free state. But why are we not able to extract them using carbon as we did with zinc oxide? The reason here being that they are higher in the reactivity series and carbon is below them. So they are very strongly bond. They are strongly bound to the oxygen atoms, and oxygen cannot easily dissociate itself to join carbon. Okay. Hence, for extraction of highly reactive metals like sodium, potassium, aluminium, the electrolytic reduction process is employed. So yes, Edwin. So electrolytic reduction of sodium chloride is an example here to show you how the highly reactive metals are extracted. Okay, so what is done is the sodium chloride is taken in a molten state. Why do you think it should be in molten state, sodium chloride? Gauri, can you tell me why should sodium chloride be in molten state? Can you tell me why sodium chloride should be in the molten state?
Where is Magda?
She left the meeting. Amoga is host now.
What?
Sorry, children, there was a current interference in between. Yeah. So Gauri, can I get the answer quickly? If you're there, or Jaypreet can give me the answer.
Ma'am, I don't know from.
The reason here is
because sodium chloride has fixed
yes,
ions.
yes, Srishti.
Because they have fixed ions.
Yes, they have fixed
They
ions,
conduct
and in molten
electricity.
state only you get the ions, right? In the molten state only you can get the ions. So it is very easy to. Children, I'll just leave the meeting and rejoin again. I'm not able to share the screen with you all. Okay, just stay there.
Ma'am. Amoga dash. I've given the Akash.
So you all have your textbooks with you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You can come to the electrolytic refining on page number 52 quickly. So sodium chloride in molten state is able to give ions, dissociate into ions, and hence it is able to conduct the electricity, and the whole process of electrolytic reduction can take place. Now what happens here is, if you see in the textbook diagram there is an electrolytic chamber, correct? And the electrolytic chamber has two electrodes. One is your anode and the other is your cathode, correct? Now what happens is, sodium chloride, which is in the molten state, is taken in the electrolytic chamber and current is passed through it. Once the current is passed, sodium dissociates into sodium ions, okay, and chloride ions. The sodium ions, being positively charged, will move towards the cathode, that is the negatively charged electrode, okay. And at the cathode, since cathode is negatively charged, it has a lot of electrons, free electrons with it. The electrons are accepted by the sodium ions and sodium metal gets deposited at the cathode. Okay, I'll repeat this again. Once molten sodium chloride is taken in the electrolytic chamber, what is happening is the current is passed through it. Once the current is passed through it, sodium chloride dissociates into sodium ions and chloride ions. Sodium ions, being positively charged, are moving towards the anode. If you see, they are moving towards the cathode. I'm very sorry, cathode. And at the cathode, they accept electrons and convert into sodium metal. Simultaneously, the chloride ions, which are negatively charged, move towards the anode and they donate the electrons, the extra electrons that they have, as you can see in that particular equation that is given there, to form chlorine gas. So you can observe some bubbles at the anode side of the electrode because the chloride ions are dissociating or giving away their electrons to form chlorine gas. Okay, so sodium chloride can be easily utilized in the molten state for obtaining metal sodium. The same can also be done for the extraction of potassium. There the molten potassium chloride would be taken and electrolytic reduction of potassium chloride would take place. The same process can also be done for obtaining aluminium from its oxide. So if I am going to obtain aluminium from aluminium oxide, which is in the molten state, can you tell me at which side of the electrolytic chamber will I get aluminium? At which side will I get aluminium deposited? The pure form of aluminium.
Cathode.
It will be at the cathode. Again, same. Why? Because aluminium will form positive ions. Agree? Yes. Cation. Once it dissociates,
Yes,
forms positive cation and that moves towards the cathode. At the cathode, it will accept electrons to form the aluminium metal. Okay. Now, usually when you have all these highly reactive metals which are obtained by electrolytic reduction, the lower reactive metals by roasting and calcination, the purity of the metal is not very, very good. To obtain very, very pure samples of a particular metal, even after the refining process has been done, reduction process has been done, another final procedure is done, which is called as the electrolytic refining. Now here I'm giving you the example of electrolytic refining of copper. So when is refining done? This may be the final stage once you have removed most of the impurities from the ores, okay, and you have obtained the metals from their respective ores, the sulfide ores or the carbonate ores or their oxide ores. Once you get these metals, they might still have certain impurities. And to remove those impurities, we do the final step of electrolytic refining. Here in the electrolytic refining, again, you have an electrolytic chamber, as we have seen previously. But the thing you should remember here is the cathode and the anode, okay, will be of the same metal. Now let's see what happens. Remember IMA. You can write it down somewhere and keep. IMA. Why to remember this? Impure metal will always be the anode. IMA. Impure metal will always be the anode. Okay, impure metal here for me is the metal that I've obtained before in all the processes above as discussed in the electrolytic reduction or in the process of roasting and calcination. Got it? That will be my impure metal. Impure metal will always behave as the anode and the pure metal will behave as the cathode. There will be a salt solution having the common ion. So here, if we are going to purify copper, the salt should also have copper as one of the ions in it. So here, suppose it is copper sulfate. Okay. Now what happens is, as soon as current is passed from the impure anode, copper ions will be dissociated and they will enter into the electrolyte or the salt solution. At the same time, copper ions from the salt solution will start moving towards the cathode side. Now, what is happening at cathode? Cathode is electron rich, right? Cathode has a high concentration of free electrons. So these copper ions, the Cu2 plus ions that you can see moving towards the cathode, will accept the electrons and form copper metal. Now the cathode side copper is very, very pure because the soluble impurities would have dissolved in the salt solution and the insoluble impurities would just settle down below the anode. Since these impurities are settled just below the anode, they are called as the anode mud. Am I clear? Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
No, ma'am.
so
No, ma'am.
always whenever you have to write about electrolytic refining, only one word you will remember, that is IMA. Impure metal is the anode. If you remember that one sentence, you all know how to draw the electrolytic tank with the 2 electrodes. So you will know that anode is the impure form and cathode will be the pure form. So what happens usually is when electrolytic refining starts, the cathode will be thinner. Okay, the pure form of the metal will be thinner, but the impure form will be thicker. But as the electrolytic refining process continues, anode will start becoming thinner and thinner because the copper metal is now getting deposited on the cathode and the impurities are settling as the anode. So once the whole process of electrolytic refining is over, you will get pure cathode, which would be having a more deposit of copper on it. It will turn out to be more thicker as compared to the initial state. Okay. Is that fine? So
Yes,
what will
ma'am.
be the reaction at the cathode? So you write in your notebook, electrolytic refining of copper. You can just put the heading as electrolytic refining of copper. Electrolytic refining of copper. And just make a statement, reaction at cathode. Before this, we saw the reaction for sodium chloride. The same way you have to write here. Reaction at cathode. What is happening at the cathode? Copper ions. What is happening at the cathode? Copper ions react with electrons. So how will you put it in the form of an equation? Cu plus 2 plus 2E minus. Cu plus 2 plus 2E minus forms 2Cu. That is copper. Why are we writing here 2 electrons, children?
Ma'am, could you repeat?
Yeah. Cu plus 2.
Yeah, ma'am.
Cu plus 2 plus 2 electrons plus 2 electrons forms 2Cu. That is your pure copper metal. So why are we writing 2E minus here? Suraj?
Electrons have negative charge.
Why we are not writing 1 electron? We are writing 2 electrons there. Prerna? Vaibhavi?
Ma'am, because it needs to accept 2 electrons to become a metal.
Yes, it is a cation having plus 2 valence state, right? So it has to accept 2 more electrons there. In previous case, sodium, what was it? Sodium was Na plus, right? And here it is only plus 1. So it is accepting 1 more electron. Is that clear?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So all these processes help us to get metals in pure state and which can be used for various purposes, ranging from making of automobile parts to different instruments, different industrial equipments, okay? Different metals are also used for jewelry, etc. Now, if you see this particular picture here, what is there on your right-hand side?
Nails.
Observe very carefully and use the proper words, please. It's not only nails. That is there on your fingers also.
Rusted nails. Rusted iron nails.
Right side, Sudesh.
Right side, okay.
Iron nails, pure iron.
Iron nails,
Iron
which are
nails,
not rusted.
not rusted.
Right side is showing you iron nail, right?
Yeah.
It is not rusted. Why are you saying it is not rusted? Why did that particular point come to your mind?
There is
Ma'am, because there is no deposition.
Deposition of copper.
Yes, Edwin?
There is no brown layer on top of it.
So Who told you that a brown layer means rusting?
No. Also.
You must have acquired this from your previous knowledge, right? Of or lower classes or your observation around you. Correct, Edwin? So you are correct. But now tell me what is happening on the left-hand side picture.
There are rusted iron nails.
It is rusted iron nail. Darshil, good. So rusted iron nail and the iron nail which are not rusted are clearly, we can differentiate them because the shine is maintained in the non-rusted iron nail while the shine is lost, and even over a period of time the rusting process continues. Okay, what will happen? The iron metal will be eaten up completely. So we all know that this is rusting, that is shown here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Why am I calling it corrosion then? I should call it rusting, no? Why am I calling it corrosion?
Ma'am, because rusting is a type of corrosion.
Okay. So rusting is a special case of corrosion, and it is always with respect to iron metal. Okay. So we come to the general definition of corrosion. Corrosion itself, it can be simply defined as the deterioration, okay, of the metal layer when it is exposed to air and water. Okay. Corrosion can be defined as the deterioration of the metal layer
to air and water
when it comes in contact with air as well as water. Okay, so what are the keywords that you should keep in mind when you are going to write the definition of corrosion?
Deterioration.
Deterioration 1, next.
Comes in contact with oxygen and water.
Oxygen and water. Pranav, if I say only water or I say only air or oxygen, will rusting take place?
Ma'am, no, there should be both water and oxygen.
Yeah, because as technically the definition is saying so. Now
Yeah.
this is a technical explanation of corrosion. So rusting is a special case of corrosion with respect to iron metal. Now we do an activity to chemically find out that yes, iron as well as water as well as oxygen is required for the rusting process to happen. The same diagram is also there in your textbooks on page number 53. So if you have your textbooks, you can also have a look at the same. Here we take 3 test tubes labeled as A, B and C. We are putting 3 iron nails in all the 3 test tubes A, B and C. In the first test tube, we add water, keep it for some time and close it with a cork. In test tube B, we take boiled water because usually when you boil water, the oxygen or the air that is present in it in the form of dissolved air will be removed. And we put a layer of oil on top of it and then again seal it with a cork. So air might be present in test tube B, but the dissolved air has been removed. Okay. Now in test tube C, we are not adding water, but to remove any other water vapor presence, we are adding a dehydrating agent there or a drying agent called as calcium chloride. So calcium chloride will act like a dehydrating agent, or it will absorb all the water vapor that might be present in that particular test tube. Okay, so you have 3 test tubes here. First one with air as well as water. The second one is having water and air and oil. And the third one is having only air. There's no water. In which among the 3 from the picture itself you can make out is rusting happening? It is happening in A.
In A.
Why? Because both air and water are present. Okay. The second test tube also has air and water, but why is rusting process not happening there? Why can't we see the process of rusting?
Because of the oil.
Because of the oil.
Darshan, what is the oil doing there?
I'm preventing the air to enter the water.
Yeah, it prevents the air from dissolving or coming in contact with water. And the third test tube is not having
Any
the
water.
third test tube is not having
Water.
Water.
water and only air. This proves that both presence of air and water are required for the process of rusting. Okay, so this type of a question usually comes in our board exams, children. Even previous year question papers have this, where the diagram is given, maybe not the same diagram. And one more thing to keep in mind is they exchange or they relabel the test tubes. So they can put B first, A second, and C third. So you should observe the diagram carefully. You should not think, oh, this is the diagram of the book, so answer should be A. Are you getting it? So you should clearly see which test tube, the sequence can be changed there. So which test tube is having both the conditions of presence of air as well as water. Then only you will be coming to the conclusion. Now, as we know from this activity that the conditions of rusting are both the presence of air as well as presence of water. Okay, now apart from iron objects getting rusted, which chemically is nothing but iron oxide, let's quickly write the formula for the same. Let's write the formula for formation of rust. So you will write iron plus water plus oxygen.
Oxygen
Correct,
is
right?
Fe2O3.
Forms iron oxide. Now the iron oxide form usually is ferric oxide. So what will be the formula of ferric oxide?
Fe2O3.
And
Fe2O3.
ferrous oxide?
Fe3O2.
PO.
So together we write it in your textbook also it is given. Sometimes you write it as
FeO.
Fe3O4.
Fe3O4. But Fe3O4 is exactly what? It is ferric oxide plus ferrous.
Ferrous oxide.
Okay. Now you must have also observed that when you have these silver articles at home, which are kept as decorative items or are used for religious purposes, after some time there is a black coating which comes on the silver articles. This black coating that comes on the silver articles is due to the formation of silver sulfide. Okay, it is due to the formation of silver sulfide. That is, silver reacts with the H2S in your H2S is hydrogen sulfide in the atmosphere and forms silver sulfide. Similarly, copper objects develop a green color coating. The brownish or reddish shine of copper objects usually is lost after some time when they're exposed continuously to atmosphere. So here there is a green coating or layer that forms, and the green coating is of copper carbonate and copper hydroxide.